Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. I'm going to address a question that has come up a lot, like a whole lot in the last couple months, regarding an advertisement that comes up periodically in front of a number of my videos and a lot of other martial arts related videos here on YouTube. And it is a self-defense system that sounds a little bit too good to be true. It's a video featuring a military guy giving a voiceover about how he's had over 600 street fights, and with just a few simple tips that he can teach you over the course of a weekend, you can become an unstoppable badass that can win any fight. Does that sound too good to be true? Well, it should, because it is. If anybody promises you that beautiful lie that you can win any fight with their system easily, regardless of size or strength or experience, it's a lie. The self-defense industry is the fear-mongering industry, and I hate it. I hate it with a passion, playing on people's fears and insecurities. So I clicked on the link and I followed the link to the website on this advertisement to see what it was all about. And it leads you to a website called Alpha Nation Combat Fighter. So, Alpha Nation Combat Fighter starts out with this story. The story by this guy with a pseudonym, John Black, not his real name. Let's read a little bit of this. He says he will share with you a simple secret that will make winning a fight as natural and automatic as sneezing. Man, I need me some of that. If I could teach people to win fights that easily, I would be the greatest combat sports coach in the history of all combat sports, regardless of style. So I don't know why this guy is wasting his time selling a self-defense program for $39 a pop on the internet to insecure nerds looking for a solution and a way out, when he would make a fortune being the best combat sports coach ever and teaching these fighters to be unstoppable. But maybe he's a saint. Anyway, he tells this long story about how when he was a kid, he was a skinny little nerd. He got beat up a lot. And that resonates with skinny little nerds. I know, because I used to be one. I used to be that guy who got bullied and picked on all the time. And I was looking for a solution. And in my childhood mind, the solution was the Hollywood fantasy. It was Bruce Lee. It was Jean-Claude Van Damme. It was the action hero in the movies who used martial arts to beat up the bad guys. Why? Because that's cool. Because that's fun. The practical reality of self-defense is it's boring. You avoid the fights. Now, some of you are probably saying, well, some fights are unavoidable. Yeah, some fights are unavoidable. Remember, I got beat up a lot when I was a kid. But the thing is, if you're a grown man and you've been in more than a couple of street fights, then you are probably the one starting them. Now, this John Black guy says that he forced himself to get into over 600 street fights. Well, John Black, my friend, if you are listening, that's because you're the problem. If you have been in over 600 street fights, it's because you are the jerk who started those fights. Badly done. Anyway, so John Black, again, not his real name. We'll get to what his real name is in a minute here. Tells this emotionally charged story about a bully that came and threatened him, and he wasn't able to fight off this bully, and so he spent the rest of his life trying to become a tough guy and learn martial arts, and he became a bouncer and joined the military and was a special forces guy and did all this badass cool stuff. and forced himself to get into over 600 street fights. And there's this whole section about how martial arts and MMA and all of this is a waste of time, and how he can teach you how to win any fight, but not a MMA fight, not a boxing match. I love this quote right here. Let me read this. "I cannot teach you how to win an MMA fight or step in the ring with a boxer. He can teach you to win any fight against anyone as easy as sneezing in 2 days, but he cannot teach you how to win an MMA fight or step in the ring with a boxer. Because those things have rules. You know, like no spitting, no swearing, no foul language, no grabbing the fence, no unsportsmanlike conduct, because, you know, the system clearly relies heavily on those things to win fights as easily as sneezing." So this story is really long, the details. It's long, it's drawn out, but it's mostly poo-pooing martial arts and traditional self-defense ideologies and whatnot. Now, here's the funny thing. When you actually get into the program, and I'll show you some of the few video clips I was able to find, it's basically the same type of self-defense crap that you find anywhere else. But, yeah. So who is this guy? Alpha Nation is run by a man named Todd Lamb. Todd Lamb is an entrepreneur who, once upon a time, was a SWAT officer in Canada. Now, Todd Lamb quit his job as a SWAT officer after a bit of a scandal. Now, at the same time as he was working as an officer, he was also making fitness videos. Fitness videos for his website, alphanation.com. And he made one called Alpha Male Body or something like that. What was the name? Let me look that up on his website. Special Force Abs or Spec Force Alpha or something like that. And that's not the bad thing. I mean, you can see some of his fitness videos here on YouTube, on his YouTube channel, and they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. I mean, he's a really fit guy, especially for his age. He's got visible muscle striations all over. And, you know, anything that motivates you to exercise, great. That's cool. I'm all for it. But he got into a bit of trouble with his tactical unit. And you can read a bunch of news articles about this. Here's one from CBC. It says Tactical Officers Alpha Male Fitness Video Under Investigation. This is from 2015, so a few years ago, after he made this program. Yeah, it says a Saanich police officer who used images of tactical team colleagues to help sell his fitness training video has resigned before the completion of a Police Act investigation. Sergeant Todd Lamb is the former leader of the Greater Victoria Emergency Response Team. He recently quit his job before the police investigation could be completed. Coincidence? Not really. So, Todd Lamb, a disgraced SWAT officer, quit his job after revealing the identities of some active duty officers. A big no-no. I'm sure he wasn't very popular with the guys back at his precinct, or whatever they call them in Canada. So he started focusing on selling his fitness programs online, and later teamed up with a certain individual named Ari Nazen to start developing some self-defense programs that he could sell as well on alphanation.com. Ari Nazen, if you don't know who that is, he's also known as Ari Bolden, the founder of Submissions 101, what used to be a very popular, the most popular Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu website on the internet, and the most popular Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu page on YouTube. Except it's not anymore. Now, it's a long soap opera of a story, what happened to Submissions 101, but basically it comes down to this. Ari was presenting himself as a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It turned out he wasn't. And it turns out that the folks in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community and the martial arts community in general don't look kindly on fake black belts. So when it was discovered that he didn't have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he didn't have a rank in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at all. He claimed to have a rank in some Japanese Jiu-Jitsu style more akin to Aikido. But even that is disputed. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole drama, but essentially Ari was disgraced. Submissions 101 lost a ton of viewers, a ton of subscribers, and kind of became the joke of the internet for a while. He totally got doxxed. So these two individuals who were kind of disgraced met each other, and they collaborated. And there's nothing wrong with that. They've got to make a living. But then they made Alpha Nation Combat Fighter. And what's really interesting about this John Black character, who is the pseudonym for this military guy who worked as a bouncer and had over 600 altercations, is that it seems to be an amalgamation of the life experience of Todd Lamb and Ari Bolden. Ari Bolden worked as a bouncer at a club in Canada where he lived for quite some time. He wrote a book about bouncing, which, as far as I understand, was a lot about situational awareness, not so much about fighting technique. Now, we have the SWAT team special ops experience from Todd Lamb and the bouncer martial arts self-defense experience from Ari Nazen. Combine them, and you'd think, well, why couldn't they come up with a decent self-defense system? I'm sure they could come up with something worth watching between the two of them. But it seems that wasn't good enough. Instead, they've come up with this elaborate fiction of John Black, because fiction is exciting. Fiction is dramatic. Fiction sells. And that's what this is all about. I listened to a podcast with Todd Lamb and a couple of entrepreneurs on the internet talking about how to get rich, how to make money. And Todd Lamb essentially said that is his primary concern. That is what he does. He is a businessman. And being a businessman, that's fine as long as you're honest about what you do. But my problem here is that there's some dishonesty here. There's some intellectual dishonesty. Promising people, especially young men, impressionable teenagers, who are looking for a way out of a desperate situation. Kids like I was, who were being terrorized and beaten up and spat on by bullies at school, who would do anything to get out of that situation, who are looking for some type of legitimate authority figure to look to for the answers. And here comes this fictional John Black promising them the answers, promising them that they can beat that bully with just 2 days of training, with just a few simple tricks. That's a lie. And I hate that with a passion. So Todd, Ari, I'm disappointed, to say the least. I mean, you gotta make your money. You gotta do what you gotta do. I'm not going to publicly shame you for what you've done in the past, because I believe that people can change, and people do change. I mean, that is the whole premise of my religion, that I believe in my heart of hearts. people can also change for the worse. And the trouble with telling lies is that you have to constantly remember them so you don't get caught in that web that you have spun. It's not worth it, man. It's not worth it. I mean, really. Being a former SWAT officer, that's impressive enough. Why did you have to make up the story about John Black? And man, Ari, being a bouncer in that club for all those years, I mean, that's legitimate experience. Why wasn't that enough? I'm going to posit to you, the viewers, that the truth is enough. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train. Preferably more than just 2 days with 5 simple techniques.